burned at stake, strangled and hanged, raped and shot and stabbed to death, throats slashed, left to bleed to death. These are just some of the ways transgender people were killed in different parts of the world, in different times in the history of our humanity. These are just the tip, the violent tip of the iceberg of our suffering. I can go on and on, reciting a litany of indignity upon indignity, but my time is not enough to name all the acts of atrocious cruelty that transgender people experience.
The lack of security, arbitrary arrests and detentions, violence and executions of LGBT people have become the order of the day in Africa. As an activist, I have experienced violations by the state. I have been beaten by police a number of times. And the reason? Walking past policemen that have the knowledge that I am a homosexual, or peacefully protesting injustices committed against me or other LGBTI people. In July 2005, my home was illegally raided by state agents, searched without a search warrant in search for incriminating evidence of homosexuality. A guest of mine was then arrested without an arrest warrant, and we were both subjected to inhuman and degrading treatment while at the police station. The offense was homosexuality. I have had to carry out my human rights defending work in hiding, and even today, if I chose to go back to Uganda, I would have to work and live in hiding. I hear even more reports of this nature of arrests and detentions on an almost weekly basis at my work at the International Gay and Lesbian Human Rights Commission. 6 weeks ago in Tanzania, 39 gay men and lesbians were arrested and detained after merely attending a party. In June 2009, several men, including 2 teenagers, were arrested in Senegal. They were detained and several were convicted for alleged sexual acts against nature. In Uganda, between April and June 2009, at least 7 gay men were arbitrarily arrested, detained, and several of them are on charges of having carnal knowledge against the order of nature, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. Even human rights defenders seeking to ensure the right to life of LGBT people face such severe persecution. In June 2008, for example, 3 Ugandan LGBT activists were arrested at the 2008 HIV implementers meeting for peacefully protesting the government's refusal to direct funds towards HIV programs that would target men who have sex with men, even though the exclusion of LGBT people from national HIV/AIDS programs and policies result in immeasurable loss of life.
5 years ago, in 2006, the situation of LGBT people was different than it was now. LGBT people were largely invisible, existing only within the framework of stereotypical and degrading jokes or foreign cinema works. By the mass media, law enforcement officers, the government, the ombudsman, or the ordinary people, homosexuality was considered a social disease that comes from. With regards to HIV/AIDS prevention, there's still a lot of work to do because there's still a high level of homophobia and transphobia in healthcare institutions and HIV/AIDS organizations. This leads to inaccessibility of healthcare for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, and thus greater health and HIV/AIDS risks for the general population. The LGBT movement in Kyrgyzstan and Central Asia is only at the beginning of a very long road towards recognition and equality.